So I'm here to talk to you about pitches. Okay. So one of the things about media is that you do need a press release sometimes, maybe depending on what it is, if you know the media directly. But what they always need is a pitch. Like, what is it? Why should we care? What are you talking about? And so many people want to be in media. You understand why you need media, right? You understand why you need PR. PR builds your credibility. When I say PR, we're promoting you through the media, through third party, so you get a third party endorsement, whether you're in a newspaper, whether you're in a magazine, you're in radio, you're in television. I'm not going to really talk about podcasts per se. That's a little bit different beast, but I'm talking about media organizations where they have certain standards where they have to vet their guests or their subject matter experts to be interviewed. So that's what I'm talking about when you're pitching. When you're pitching a journalist, they abide by certain rules, certain ethics, journalism ethics. And so, really think about it. The main thing is they're doing a job and they have to fill a news hole every day. So, what is interesting to their audience? It's not about you selling something, selling your program, selling your book, selling your services, but what is it that is of interest? So the last note that I did in Substack talked about the 10 different types of angles or hooks that the media looks for. One of the one that is the most interesting is obviously the human interest angle, but it can be a something that is newsworthy to that outlet. And so what I really want to talk to you about is that you can post all day, and I love social media. This obviously Substack is social media, YouTube is social media, Facebook, Meta, all those things, TikTok. I'm on TikTok too. You do need to have traditional media, have a traditional journalist tell your story. It could make such a big difference. So there was a client, her name is Valise, and Valise was on WDIV, which is an NBC affiliate in Metro Detroit. She had a book that was coming out. Everybody has a book coming out. I mean, there's millions of new books every year. But what was different of how she actually got that coverage, and she had the behind the scenes. She was taking pictures with the TV personality that people knew. They may not have known her, but they knew the TV personalities that she was with. So she bubbled up and she leveraged that. How did she get that? I'll tell you that in a minute. But because she did go on, it was because the book was talking about bookkeeping for business owners. What time is this? This is March. Right now you're looking at it April 15th, those kind of things. This is tax season. So how do so many people are entrepreneurs? How do they do the bookkeeping? And so her background is in finance and she wrote a book about it. Really, really good signature book. She got on television. How did she get on television? Obviously, she had to do a pitch. And one of the things that she did is she talked with the people. Well, first thing she did, she reached out on LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm teaching you how you can do your own PR, but you have to know the right language to say and who to say it to. So she reached out on LinkedIn to the producer of the particular news segment. Didn't hear back. Not unusual. They probably get about 200 pitches a day. Pretty competitive. It's competitive because there's only so much that on television that they can put on, right? They can't do it all day, every day. 100 people, 200 people. So they have to be selected. She didn't hear back. Was maybe that the pitch was bad, but maybe they just didn't know her, which is a whole nother thing. If they know you, it's a different. So then she ran into someone else and says, hey, I pitched that particular station. They didn't hear back. And they said, who did you pitch? And I said to her, did you pitch Cherie? And Cherie happens to be a person of color and she has a little bit more empathy. And she went to really bat for her. And she got on. And she happened to be on with another person of color in Detroit. So I'm saying this to say that we live in kind of like a black and white world where it's not colorless, but people really gear or how do I say, people really gravitate towards people who are more like them and people who they may have in common. And so when you look at these are some PR books right here. Maybe my hair looks like hers, but I don't my eyes aren't blue. And that definitely, you know. So, but It's different for them than it is for us. It's different for them as it is for us. That's why we have Black press. Okay, there's only roughly about 200 or so Black newspapers in the country. If you live in a major city, you should know your Black press in your city, whether they're publishing a physical newspaper or whether they are online. New Orleans has one, Detroit has one, Chicago has several, Atlanta has several. These are the Black press. Why? Because sometimes we don't get coverage from the general market initially, but we will always have the Black press to tell our stories. To tell our stories. They care. They have the empathy for us. They know us. That's why the Black press. Some of them are 100 years old. I think the Michigan Chronicle is like 105 years old. New Orleans papers are 40 years old. Washington Informer, the Afro. You can name a lot of them. There's some even in Portland. There's definitely, I think, three in the Forward Times, and then the Houston newspaper as well. I think they have for the Dallas News. There's a lot of Black press. So if you just went to Black press, you'll see. And then we have radio. Kathy Hughes was a big proponent. She had a lot of Radio One stations and that sort of thing. Why? Because we like to hear our own. We'll have our morning drive, our midday drive, and our afternoon drive, and our overnight. They are overnight. They are people, and then the Sunday, the weekend shows, the community affairs shows. Those are in Black radio. I love the Black press. Speakers Magazine is really features African American speakers. Why? Because typically they weren't sharing our stories, and that's it. It's not like, we want to be separate, but we just want to make sure that our stories are told. And then also too, there are a lot of other Black magazines. I have grown up reading a lot of the Black magazines. That's really the inspiration from this is from Ebony and Jet and Essence and Black Enterprise and Heart and Soul and Upscale. A lot of them are really publishing online now, and they're doing podcasts. Shout out to Alfred Edmonds, who has me sometime co-hosting his show, Be Lifted Up, and he's an executive editor with Black Enterprise. Love the work that he said for over 30 years. For over 30 years, he's like a goat in terms of that, and he's doing really good work. But Black newspapers, magazines, there's not as many Black uh, television stations per se. I mean, there's things like Revolt and things like that. Those are streaming networks. We have the Leading Edge network TV, Leading Edge TV, which is a streaming platform. But I'm talking about like those that have like the FCC licensed television stations. That's what I'm talking about there. And then there's online. I love Madame Noir, The Griot, Blavity, The Root. Blavity and The Root are Black owned, and so is the other ones as well. So when we talk about the pitch and we talk about who to pitch to, if you are a African American subject matter expert, author, and you want to know how to get into media, how to possibly even become like that media darling for them, come to my event. I'll be looking at your pitch, telling you who to pitch to, even introducing you to some of my media friends, whether it's Roland's television station, a streaming network on YouTube, Black Star Network. Really important to have those type of things. You see that the media landscape is changing, and we are really taking up our space in that. So go to pamperrypr.com, PR Pitch Fix. The doctor is in, and I will show you how to fix your pitch so that it lands a media hit for you. Now, once you land the media hit, I will then share with you 50 ways on how to leverage that so that it can turn into clients for you, or convert it into, at least at the very least, maybe a speaking opportunity, that sort of thing. So you're using other people's platforms. The media is another platform you to be on besides your own, which is your own curated social media. That's fine. But then the media has a lot larger reach of people that you would not have reached unless you were on there. But in order to get on there, you have to pitch. Pitch is another word for sell. Selling the idea. Why you're good. So I have clients that, depending on the timing of year, in December, A lot of people are going through grieving and they're missing loved ones. We pitched her to the TV station she got on during that time. Like, and the tips were, we pitched like tips on how to get through the holiday when you're missing your loved one. She did a bang up job and did media training. She's on every single month. And we find a different hook for her every single month because obviously it's not the holidays, but we find a different hook for her every single month so that she can talk about what she talks about, which is really how to overcome grief. So, depending on what it is and what your book is, so you don't just pitch your book. Like, I have a book and this is what I want to talk about. How does it relate to your that audience that you're pitching it to? Takes a little bit of homework, takes a little bit of thinking like an editor, thinking like a producer. How do you do that? And that's when my training as a publicist and also a journalism person my entire life. I majored in journalism and public relations in school, and I've been PR directors of several nonprofits. I have worked with major brands like Ford Motor Company and Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's. But now I work with authors and speakers. Nothing wrong with McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts if that's your thing. I just in my younger careers, I was just trying to get a job. So in my 20s, I was working for those type of companies and I was doing PR for them. But I was like, you know what? This I don't feel like I want to continue to promote hamburgers and all this kind of fast food my entire life. I want to promote things that are good. So that's why I chose to promote things that I believe in, and if you believe in your message and it's going to be something that impacts the world, I'm the person that really is the person that shows you how to do that. Whether I put you on the cover of Speakers Magazine, or I encourage you to do an event, or I help you get other speakers, or I get you in front of the right people, whether you are on a very popular podcast, or whether you're become a columnist for a newspaper, or you're a regular guest on a television show, which is what I really am really good at because it can help really map out how you can be a regular guest on a particular show. But you have to, it starts out with connections. So, yes, you do have the information. You could probably chat GPT how to write a pitch. But what this will do is show you who I know personally over the years I've been in the media business, who to connect with and who to send it to. Whether it is Tamron Hall or whether it is Sherry Shepherd, bless her heart. I don't know what's going to happen with that. And then, Jay Hudd. Those are the big ones. And everyone's saying, "What about Oprah? What about Oprah?" Well, it depends. You got to work up to Oprah. Okay, Oprah is kind of like the big cheese. So you start small and you build, but you have to start somewhere. So I can tell you stories of people who I've gotten on Oprah, but they didn't just start out being like right out the gate and get on Oprah. So there were different things that they had to do in order to go to that. And a lot of times it depends on the positioning of it and also the branding assets that you have, the marketing assets that you have. So I'll take a look at some of that to say if you're ready or not. I do have like a little quiz too to see how bookable you are. That's at pamperrypr.com/quiz. Pamperrypr.com/quiz to see how bookable you are. Meaning, like, are the other things in line? Because as a publicist, you can't book someone if they're not ready. You can't book them if they want to be on television and there's nothing on them online of them speaking because they want to see how you look and how you sound because that's television. Or there's no story ever written about you. You need some kind of story to start with. So with Stephanie, we're going to pitch her in the DMV area. That's where her event is. And we're going to pitch it to the areas that will be interested in what she has to say. The name of her conference is She's Got Something to Say. So it does take a little bit of research to figure out who to pitch her to and what to say. That's the beauty of having a publicist look at your pitch and giving you the instruction of who to send it to and how to say. And don't make them long because ain't nobody got time to read all that stuff. And sometimes a press release is needed, but sometimes the press release is needed for SEO, search engine optimization. It may not necessarily that you're going to send the press release out, but if they Google you, once you send them a pitch, they need to find it. They need to know that it's legit. That's really the thing. So, like I said, these books here, they're a little bit different for you if you're a person of color because theirs is different. And they could teach you a little bit of, in theory about public relations, but in reality, People will book people who they know, like, and trust, and people who they know. And one of the things is that if you don't swim in that circle, they may just delete you because they don't know you. And it's very the same way. And like, say for instance, with a Black Star Network, if Roland doesn't think you're a good fit for his show, he may not bring you on. But if he knows you, he tries to maybe find a way to make that fit. It's the same thing with any of the producers. They will work with you if they know you and they know your character. But if they don't know you, it's like, okay, I've got 200 other people that I can look at, and I don't know you. You coming at me wrong, and you just trying to sell stuff. No. And once you have a no from a station, sometimes you really can't go back because they've already have made a judgment about you. Like, you don't know what you're doing. So you don't want to be that person. You want to know what you're doing and you want to pitch. Now, do you have to pitch more than once? Sometimes, yeah, definitely. But you don't want to pitch, keep pitching, and they are just constantly deleting it because you're coming at them wrong. So the pitch needs to be have a certain science about how to write the pitch. And depending on who you're pitching it to, it gets um, certain ways that they like. And you have to know what kind of stories they cover. It could be in the daily newspaper, but what section of the newspaper? Is it going to be the women's section? Is it going to be in the business section? Or depending on what time of the year is it going to be during Women's History Month? Or is it one of those months where it's like, hey, it's National, uh, it's HIV Day, Awareness Day, or it could be May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So in that particular month, if you are a mental therapist, probably a good month to pitch a story. But you got to have an angle. Just say, hey, it's mental, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm a therapist. Bring me on. Mm-mm. No, you got to have something a little bit deeper. You got to do the research for them before you pitch. You really do. You just can't be out here just like, oh, okay, well, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I talk about breast cancer. But talk about it how, why, or did they even cover that story before? That's the other thing. Sometimes you can pitch something to a magazine, newspaper, television, radio station. They said we covered that last week. Don't you? Wouldn't you feel like stupid? So that's if they say they already covered it, it's kind of like you didn't even really check and do any research. So that's what a publicist does for you, is to look at your pitch, figure out who to send it to, do the research to see if they've covered it before. If they have covered it before, now maybe make this pitch a little bit different from what they already had covered. But what's the spin? You could call PR people spin doctors. Like, what is the spin now that we're going to make it different? So the fact that you have a book is not news. The fact that you are having an event is not the news. What is it about your event or book that makes it interesting to their audience? And where do you find these people? Sometimes people like me, we have a bank of thousands and thousands of media contacts. And part of a publicist has to do is remember who looks for what, and give it to them. But also too, you can do your own research as well, and I can show you how you can find your own media contacts and really make a list of the top 10. I think in my last post I did on Substack, I made a list of the things that you need in order to get media exposure, and then I asked you to list some of the your dream media outlets that you would like to be on. Now you may say Oprah, but then we'll work backwards before you get to Oprah. Like, you need to have A, B, C, and D in order to move up that mountain. So you just don't jump to the top of the mountain, you work your way up. But what are the things that you need to do? And I'll tell you some secrets too, on if depending on what it is that what field you're in, to find your influencers in the area. And maybe it's creating your own media outlet and doing a podcast, and really then leveraging some of their influence for your influence. A lot of people do that. That's why there's so many podcasts. It's a ton of podcasts, but you have to be strategic with it. You really do. You have to be strategic with it. And so on this Saturday afternoon, after just interviewing Dr. Stephanie Wall, I'm getting her pitched on some television and some different newspapers and things like that. Because besides her doing the event, one of the things is that she wants people to understand that beyond the event, she has other things to say besides the event. that she is actually a life coach, and she's a speaker for hire as well. So one of the things that I will do in my event on March 26th is have people practice their pitch. They're going to actually say it out loud to me. And I'm going to act like that producer or that editor. And they're going to say it to me and they're going to practice it. And then they're actually going to pitch it, and I'll actually take it and I'll actually pitch it to some of my media friends, because I want you to practice your elevator pitch. Who it is, who do you serve, what the story angle is, and why this is important. Because when you're doing a press release, it's who, what, when, where, and why. And really, the last part is who cares. That's the part. It's like, who cares? And the media was like, who cares? They say that all the time because they have too many people pitching them. They used to only get email, now they're getting DMs, and now they're getting all these other things. So they have to have a standard of saying where they say no. But what I will do in the PR pitch fix is like how you get to the yes. What are the things that will make them say yes? Because this is their job. They want to say yes. And that you want to make their job easy. And you make their job easy by doing the research. You put on the producer's hat. What visuals would you put with it? What statistics do you have with this? What other credentials? What other type of storylines can you combine with that? Because you think about it, maybe they're out trying to win an Emmy. So you want to give them a really, really good story to make them look good. In the interim, once they cover you, you look good as well. I think of a lady, Elizabeth White. I love Elizabeth White. She wrote a book called 55 and Underemployed and Faking Normal. And that was her life. She was 55, she was underemployed, and she was faking like life was normal, and it wasn't. And a lot of times people were talking to her and she was having a hard time. Harvard trained, she had a BS in political science, she's traveled, she worked at World Bank. Elizabeth had the credentials, but she could not find a job. Part of it was ageism, and she had been an entrepreneur and things didn't really work out. So a lot of her savings and 401k was gone. So it was just like really underemployed and she needed a job. And she wrote about it, and PBS, public broadcasting, put it on their Facebook page. She wrote the story. Obviously, she's a good writer. She wrote the story about I am she. I think she said I am she. And she talked about her plight, and it went viral. Viral. And hundreds of people said, "Oh, that's my story. I really da da da. I'm the same way." And then PBS did a longer story about her, and she was actually on the network, and that went viral as well. It was like then she started getting all these different opportunities to speak, and people were asking her to come on her show, on their podcast, and that. Then she got a book deal, big book deal. And then that launched a whole nother thing that she didn't even understand what was happening, but it launched a whole nother sphere of her career for her. She's now 70 years old, I believe now. But when she did it, it was 50 over 55. So I don't know if she was closer to 60 or whatever, but it's been a while. So Elizabeth White started out with one little letter. It was like, I guess you would say it was like an op-ed, opinion editorial, which is a good place to start. If you've never done an op-ed before and you have a strong opinion about something, you send it to the editorial of that particular outlet, and they will run your op-ed. The op-ed is a good place to start. You're telling your own story, and they put you on their platform. Op-ed. Google it. Put it in chat. Okay. Don't chat everything though. Don't put everything in Chat GPT. Chat GPT is not going to make your pitches sound good. Actually, they'll know. Okay, journalists are not dumb. They're word people, so they'll know if it's Chat GPT. They have a love-hate relationship with Chat GPT, because they were journalists, they were trained, and so you can't come to them with a whole bunch of Chat GPT. So Elizabeth White was one. I have another client that he has been he's in Boston, and then he was coming to Detroit for an event. And during COVID, we were doing a lot of streams, so you got to have a good background too if you're going to do streams. And he was virtual doing a television interview with the station, Fox station. And then when he came to Detroit, because he did the Fox station, they saw how he looked on stream. He went in and did CW. He did this station. He came to the studio. How long are the interviews? They could be 5 to 7 minutes. Will they fly you in if you're going to go to the Today Show? And no, it's on your dime. So just know that when you are, that's why I said to start local, because if you want to do national, they typically don't fly you in. The producers do not fly you in for these interviews. So whether you want to go to different stations or not, I will say though, if you do want to get on a lot of television stations, start with the lower market stations. Obviously New York is number one. The top 10 markets are more competitive than, like, say, a little city in Arkansas. Okay. Those are the ones that are easier to get to. Now, you could probably get on a station in Arkansas, but you'd have to fly on your own dime if you don't live in Arkansas. So those are the things that I will help you do. But if you do have a station that's in the major market, try the weekend first before during the week. So usually the weekend shows are a lot community affairs oriented, and that's a little bit easier to get into because you then have a bigger story and you have a longer time to actually tell that story. So those are the type of people. They're usually the community affairs directors and that sort of thing. And I'll show you how to find those people on the class, the PR Pitch Fix. Yep. So the doctor's in, the PR pitch fix. This is the thing that is, when I tell you I love doing this. I've been doing this so long. I love doing this. It's like it's matching the right media to your message. And you just have to be ready. And the overall thing, what PR can do for your business is amazing, because I'll show you 50 ways of how to leverage it. So it turns into a ROI for you, a return on investment of your time and sometimes the energy and the money that you spend on trying to get that PR outlet to cover you. Now, I don't do PR for vanity, meaning like for ego. You see right on my, one of my things is like PR for purpose, not for ego. So really the purpose is what I like, enjoying helping subject matter experts get their message out there. People like Stephanie Wall, they have a message that they want to share because they want to help other people. They want to really make a difference. If you're just trying to get a lot of dopamine likes and just want people to talk about you, and you know that's not me. That's a whole nother thing about why people want PR. That's why some people say, "Oh, I just want to get a billboard." For what? What is that for? So other people can see me. Okay, well, whatever. Mm, okay. Sounds like you need a therapist and not a publicist. But anyway, with that, I am out. Andrea Johnson, thank you for joining me and for hanging with me. Put your picture up, girl. Let me see what you look like so I could, let's brand a little bit, okay? So anyway, if you're interested in coming to the PR Pitch Fix on March 26th, do that. All right. And go to pamperrypr.com/PR Pitch Fix. All right. Talk to you later. God bless. Have a good rest of the day. All righty. pamperrypr.com. And I'm out. God bless.